Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I am going to be sharing with you some of my favourite fantasy tropes. Look a little bit different here. I have flipped my background around. It may be weird, I may keep it like this because I think it looks better, but I'm gonna have to use like the opposite sides than I normally use, and that's gonna be a little bit weird. But today I am sharing with you my favorite fantasy tropes, or more specifically tropes that I really like when read in fantasy, because while some of these are fantasy tropes, some of them are not. However, I really like reading them in fantasy stories. So if you guys are unfamiliar with what a trope is, it is a recurrent theme. You can have world building tropes, plot tropes, character tropes, but essentially it is just a literary device or a narrative device that you see repeatedly throughout different novels, different movies, different TV shows. So today I do have 6 to share with you guys. These are in no particular order except that I'm saving my favorite one until last. So the first one we're going to be talking about today is the found family trope. Now this is typically when a group of characters, I have predominantly seen it in young adult books, but it does happen in adult fantasy as well, but when a group of characters come together and they become each other's family. This is usually because these characters don't have families, or they don't like their families, or they're estranged from their families, and what we have is a big group of characters who normally, most of the time, they don't get on. A lot of them have clashing personalities, but together they work as a team, as a unit, and would do absolutely anything for each other. Now, books that I find do this particularly well, any series by Sarah J Maas has a found family in it. Actually, most of the tropes that I'm going to be talking about today have been used by Sarah J Maas. Does the woman use a lot of tropes, or are these my favourites because she uses them all the time? I cannot tell you, but she always has a found family group in her series. Another very popular one would of course be the Crows from the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, where we have a band of criminals, all from very rough backgrounds, who band together to perform a heist and end up becoming the best of friends. J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman also frequently do this, albeit in science fiction. Every book in the Illuminate files does follow 2 separate characters. However, as the plot progresses, it does come together and all the characters end up interwoven at some point into a big group scenario. And in their most recent young adult science fiction release, we do have Squad 312, who are a group of space cadets that the very talented supreme Tyler Jones had to script together from the bottom of the barrel. On paper, none of them look any good, but together they do complement each other and help each other out with their unique skills. The second trope that we're going to be talking about today is grey morality. This is a pretty popular one at the moment. Grey morality is when you have characters that are neither bad nor good. There are good aspects of their characters, but there are also very murky aspects of their characters. Another variation of grey morality, I guess, is characters who do bad things, but they themselves believe that they are doing the right thing and that they are good people. I think the thing that I really love about grey morality, and probably what everybody else loves as well, is that humans are nuanced. Not everybody is a hero. We all have this darkness inside us. We have dark aspects of our personality. We have bad habits, and sometimes we think bad things. And I think the big appeal with morally grey characters in fiction is that we get to see that in ourselves. You see more than one aspect of somebody's personality. Not everybody is perfect all the time, and sometimes people fuck up really badly, and this is often represented in grey morality. As well as that, it is really great to be able to explore the extent of a character's darkness and how far they are willing to go when they give into the dark side of them in a way that in real life we can't really do. 1, because we want to be good people, and 2, because it's illegal a lot of the time. So there are plenty of book series that do this really well. I know V. Schwab is well known for morally great characters. However, I have not read many of her books yet. But one book that I read very recently that I really liked the portrayal of grey morality in was Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This book follows a witch and a witch hunter that are forced to be married, and at surface level it is very black and white. Witches are very free-spirited and bad, and witch hunters are very pious, very religious, and they are the good guys. However, from the perspective of a witch, the witch hunter is obviously the bad guy, and as you go through the novel it becomes very obvious that neither side is good or bad. Both sides have good aspects, both sides have bad aspects, and at the end of the day, people are just people. The third trope we're going to be talking about today is actually a romance trope, but I really like reading it in fantasy, and that is enemies to lovers. This one is pretty straightforward. You have two characters who absolutely despise each other, but by the end of the book they are madly in love. Now I do think it is pretty obvious why I particularly like enemies to lovers. If you guys have been here for a while, you know that my favourite romances are angsty, problematic. I even like a toxic relationship in some novels, and so when you start out with characters that absolutely hate each other, you are definitely going to get some of these dynamics, especially the angst. These two characters, they absolutely hate each other's guts. They scream at each other, they shout at each other, they walk out on each other. However, at the end of the day, something just keeps bringing them back. Now, there are endless amounts of books with this trope, one being Serpent and Dove by Shelby McCurran, because as you can imagine, a witch and a witch hunter are just not going to get on. This is also a trope that is often utilised by Sarah J Maas, most recently in Crescent City or House of Earth and Blood. There we have Hunt and Bryce. Hunt is a fallen angel bodyguard who has been assigned to protect Bryce. However, she has no interest in brooding territorial immortal men, and as soon as she sees Hunt, she stereotypes him as that, while he stereotypes her as a vapid party girl, and those two butt heads continuously throughout that book. However, a book that I read very recently that I just fell in love with was Fortuna Swan by KJ Sutton. This is a self-published dark fairy romance, and in this we follow a paranormal creature known as a nightmare called Fortuna Swan, who is forced to marry a very powerful dark fairy in order to find out the whereabouts of her brother who went missing 2 years previous to the start of the novel. In the character of the love interest, Colith, we have a lot of darkness. He will do absolutely anything for his court, and so a lot of the time he comes across as a bastard. Fortuna is very tenacious, she's very feisty, she is pretty much no holds barred, and she has been burned by fairies before. She knows that they are tricksters and she does not trust them one bit. So one thing that she is determined to do, even as her attraction to Colith grows, is not fall in love with him. Do they fall in love? I guess you will have to read it and see, but let me tell you, the sexual tension in that book is unparalleled. The fourth trope I have to talk to you about is a magical or fighting competition or tournament. This is a trope that was done to death in like 2010s fiction, like around that time, where pretty much every young adult fantasy book had some sort of competition, some sort of tournament where our main character would have to fight for whatever reason. That being said, it is still one of my ultimate favourites, even though there tends to be only one of two outcomes. Either the main character is victorious and wins the entire thing, or the main character gets to the final round but is beaten by somebody else and they learn humility and that it is the taking part that matters and not necessarily the winning. Regardless, I still absolutely love it. I cannot get enough. There are endless amounts of books that I have read with this trope that I've really loved. One of those is the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard that a lot of people really don't like. They consider it very tropey. However, I just eat that shit up. In that we follow Mare Barrow, who is a red blood, which means that she has no powers, and she lives in a world dominated by silver bloods, who are people that have almost superhero-like powers. One day, Mare is put in a situation where she finds out that she does actually have some kind of ability, and so she is taken into the silver world where they try and pass her off as a silver so as not to expose the fact that a random red has powers. And in that book we do have Queen's Trial, where a lot of eligible young ladies are competing for the hand of a prince. Another book, albeit a sci-fi, is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is one of my favourite science fiction books. It is a virtual reality sci-fi and it follows a competition in a virtual world. This book is set in a dystopian world where people plug into this virtual online paradise called the Oasis so that they can actually live decent lives instead of living in this barren landscape. In the Oasis there is an Easter egg hunt that was left behind by the creator of the Oasis, and whoever manages to find all of the Easter eggs will inherit the guy's estate and also the control of the Oasis itself. However, it has been many years and nobody has even found the first clue. Now our main character of course does stumble upon the first clue, and this leads to a very heated competition as everybody races to be the first person across the finish line and inherit the entire world pretty much. Next up, I want to talk about revenge plots. Now revenge plots are very popular in fantasy. Even if the entire plot of the book is not necessarily about revenge, there is almost always some revenge element in there. I can't even say particularly why I like revenge plots. I guess, am I a vengeful person? I don't think I am. I'm a Taurus, so I'm stubborn and I can hold a grudge. But do I ever go for revenge? I believe in fate. I believe that people get what's coming to them. Am I vengeful? I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. side. I don't think I am, but maybe. But I do think that there is something appealing about a character who is so driven, especially if the reason that they're looking for revenge happened a long time ago and they have just been harboring this grudge and growing it until it just completely takes them over, and they are so driven and so determined that they will actually go out there and make sure that the person that wronged them gets what they deserve. Now, as I said, there are tons and tons of fantasy books that have this trope, but my personal favorite is of course one of my favorite series of all time, Nevernight by J. Kristoff. In this one we follow 16-year-old Mia Corvair, whose mother was imprisoned and whose father was hung for treason. This was when Mia was very young, and after that event, which she was forced to watch, she was taken in by an old man called Mercurial, who prepared her for entry into an exclusive group of assassins called the Red Church. And the Nevernight Chronicle follows Mia traveling to the Red Church, studying there, all for the ultimate goal of getting revenge for what was done for her parents. Now, the reason that I love it in Nevernight specifically is Mia is one of those characters who is so driven. This has taken over her life. This is her entire life's purpose, and she will stop at absolutely nothing to get what she has wanted her entire life. And the last trope that I want to talk about today is one that I can't really give any examples for, but this is a trope that is very popular across all forms of media, and that is the Here Comes the Cavalry trope. This is my favorite trope of all time. So the Here Comes the Cavalry trope, a lot of people don't know that it's named that. I don't know if that is its official name or whether there is a better name for it, but it is when you reach the end of an epic fantasy. Your heroes are downtrodden, your heroes are losing, the villains are just too powerful, there are just too many of them, and the good guys are about to lose. However, just as the villain is about to strike the killing blow, what is that coming over the horizon but the cavalry to save the day? Now, I think that the reason that I particularly love this trope is that I am not a book crier. I'm not an emotive person. The reason that I really like to read series as opposed to standalones is because it takes me that long to be invested, and that is also a reason why I really like character-driven fantasy as opposed to plot-driven fantasy, because if I get to the end and my heart doesn't hurt, then it really wasn't worth it for me. So that being said, Here Comes the Cavalry is one of the only things that makes me emotional, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why it makes me so emotional. I think it may be the thought of a cause or a person or a group of people being so important to somebody else that last minute they decided that they were going to turn up and fight this battle that isn't necessarily theirs. Now, I'm not going to recommend any books for this because, as you can imagine, letting you know when the cavalry comes to save the day at the end of a book is a little bit of a spoiler. However, I did say that this trope is used across most media. I do believe that one of the most popular instances of this trope is in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and one particular instance I remember of it in television is in Game of Thrones during the Battle of the Bastards. So that is it. Those are my 6 favorite tropes as of yet. I read quite a wide range of stuff. I do predominantly read fantasy, but I do read other genres. So for me to be able to find books that share similar components, to be able to know what tropes are my favorite, was a little bit difficult, and it did take me a little while to comprise this list. However, I feel like I have been reading books that do have some similar themes recently, and so I thought it was time I let you guys know what I love to read about. Please let me know down in my comments if you have any recommendations for the tropes that I have just mentioned, because I would seriously love to read more of my favorite tropes, because I also at some point would really like to bring you specific book recommendations for things like hate to love romances in fantasy and for things like really good grey morality in fantasy. I do have a spreadsheet where I'm comprising all these lists of recommendations. I just have not read enough books yet, so if you guys could give me any recommendations, that would be absolutely great. But that is about it from me today, so please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to. If you head into my description box, you'll find links to my Goodreads, Instagram, Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.